Good afternoon, everyone. May I please ask you to take your seats? I know we have quite a full room for this discussion. We can all get comfortable. We're going to go ahead and begin. I know we have a few more people trickling in, but um, we'll get started. They can just join in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Art Mumbai. I hope everyone who was here yesterday had an absolutely fantastic day. In a city like Mumbai, that's always in motion, that's always exciting, where people engage with each other, maybe sometimes because they have to, and sometimes because they don't have a choice. We're packed to the hilt. I think last night, the fashion show, the conclusion of our first day at Art Mumbai was incredible. So thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for your energy. And we can officially start today with our series of panel discussions. I want to take a moment to say a special thank you to the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art and Kiran Nadar, of course. We wouldn't have been able to do this without her on many fronts, not just the speaker series, which KNMA is the lead sponsor for. As we sit here today at the third edition of Art Mumbai, the newness of this fair is not lost on me. I think we can all safely say that the growth and the momentum, the energy, the sort of, movement that everyone's had, as I said, the excitement is extraordinary. And it's not just limited to us. I think there seems to be something about India, whether it's an economic or cultural confidence, whether it's an emerging contemporary identity, whether it's an art ecosystem that we're celebrating here. I think there's a real palpable movement towards India, towards the region, towards greater South Asia and this part of the world. And I think it's entirely fitting then that the discussion today, today's keynote panel, is about this shifting of axis of influence. And this is going to be a discussion, a fireside chat, really, between Kiran Nadar and Kito de Boer. I think what they're going to be examining really is one of the most significant trends in the contemporary art world. As I said, this eastward movement of cultural influence and collaboration. And before we get started and I introduce them, I want to take a quick moment to just set some context. Sorry, I'm recovering after last night. Set some context about the scale of this movement. For those of you who don't know, the upcoming Kiran Nadar Museum is about 1 million square feet. That means it's the same size as the Tate Modern in London. In terms of exhibition space, it is larger than the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It is the largest museum currently under construction in the entire world. Just imagine what it would take to fill a space like this, a museum like this. And I don't mean just in terms of the art, but everything that goes with it, the people, the thought, the collaboration, the world that has to be created in order to make this happen. And that's really what today's discussion is about. If I can call it that, it's a bit about this tsunami that's about to come here. And we're incredibly fortunate to have with us two of the most visionary figures in the field, and of course, Kiran Nadar herself to talk us through. Kiran is one of India's most transformative cultural figures, as you all know, and an incredible philanthropist. As the founder of the museum in 2010, she created India's first private nonprofit museum, and I think she fundamentally changed the way we experience modern and contemporary art. Her collection is probably the most significant in the country. Not probably, it is. And she's shaped institutional practices. She's championed emerging voices. She's really positioned South Asian art prominently on the global stage. I think she's given us a voice that we needed as a region. I would say she single-handedly fostered a contemporary museum-going culture in India, making art accessible and making it relevant to generations of audiences. And Kito de Boer, for those of you who don't know him, brings an extraordinary amount of experience in cultural strategy and development. And for those of us who worked in the consulting world, he was a bit of a legend. So, it was definitely a fangirl moment when I met him. But Kito and his wife Jane started collecting South Asian art when they lived in Delhi and have remained active for decades. Their collection focuses on 20th century art across many of the schools from the subcontinent and have a very strong representation of artists like Souza, of Raza, Ganesh Pine, Rameshwar Bhuta, as well as early Bengal school and several contemporary artists as well. I just want to show you, I've left the book there, but they've published an extraordinary book that I think chronicles their collecting journey, but also gives an insight into many of these schools that they choose to bring focus to. Kito is now retired from corporate life. He's the chair of Antara International, which seeks to raise funds to support the Antara Foundation, which is an organization that focuses on supporting vulnerable mothers and infants in the first 1,000 days of their lives in northern India. So together, they're going to discuss critical issues about funding, about creating skilled cultural workforces, and sustaining audience engagement for what is due to be a very, very large platform. And I think it's also laying the groundwork for us to see where this goes as the Asian art landscape evolves. Please join me in welcoming both Kiran and Kito to the stage, and thank you for being here.
Manal, thank you for a lovely introduction. The reality is, I feel a bit like the support band to Taylor Swift. Uh, uh, so to be on stage with Kiran, who needs no introduction, is always an extraordinary privilege. I think we've heard a lot about Kiran from, if you like, a top-down perspective. I mean, she is the engine for art and culture, not only in India and beyond, and she is a titan who strides over the market. But the thing that has always struck me about Kiran is her incredible enthusiasm on the ground for anything related to art. It doesn't really matter where in India I go, in fact, often around the world, but you can be in some sort of dark basement at an obscure art show, and Kiran will be sitting in the corner talking to everybody. She hasn't outsourced her passion. She drives it herself. And while she has lots of people who she's built an organization around her, it's her personal involvement and commitment and knowledge and really love for the artists that I think makes you distinctive in my experience. And it's always a joy to be with her. So it's a privilege. Uh, in this discussion, I think what was asked was that we give a bit of an overview about what's happening in South Asia and the Middle East. I've lived for 30 years, 7 of them in India and the remainder in the Middle East, in Dubai and in Jerusalem. So have a sense of what's going on. And in order to set some context, I thought I'd spend just 5 minutes going a bit off-piste, going beyond just art, to tell you what you probably already sense already, that what's happening in this part of the world is a structural shift in the world, not just in art, but beyond. So if I start with just the economy overall and what's been going on, if I look at when I first came to India in 93 and the growth in the economies since then, what you see if you look at Manasseh, which is the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia, this whole part of the world, it's grown 4 times faster than Europe. And in many cases, it's overtaken it. If you look at the stock market alone, which is really what drives a lot of the wealth that in the end seeps through into the art market, if you look at India compared to the UK, for example, India has grown 20 times faster than the UK. if you look at high net worth individuals, those people who have got more net worth than $10 million, who are really the central customers for art. They represent usually about 60% of the art buying market, and they spend a substantial amount, about 20% of their disposable portfolio on art. Um, that has doubled in the last 5 years, and India is now the fourth largest country in the world for high net worth individuals, the absolute crucial market for driving the art market generally. If you look at the global art market, it is big. It's $60 billion and goes up and down. It's been going down over the last couple of years. But the stock of art, which people don't talk about very much because art isn't traded that much, that's about $2 trillion. So it is a very, very substantial market, an asset class for particularly high net worth individuals. To put that art market into some perspective, that $60 billion is about the same size as the global market for private jets and super yachts. And I'll come in to explain why that is, because if you think about high net worth individuals, you think about the classes of assets that they're buying, and art is really only one part of that. If you think about private jets alone, India is the fastest growing market in the world for private jets. And as I thought about this presentation, I minted a new currency, and I call it the Gran Yatra currency, which, as you know, is now the highest price ever paid for a work of art. So if you think about what high net worth individuals are spending in India alone on private jets, it's the equivalent of about 10 Grand Yatras a year that they're buying. Right? So I think there's still a lot of huge amounts of disposable income in India, which is only just beginning to find its way to invest in the market. Look at India in terms of, as we're talking about aircraft, about airlines alone. The two largest airplane orders for civilian airliners in the world ever placed were placed this year by Indigo and Air India. Between them, they ordered 1,000 commercial jets. That represents about 30% of the global economy. So once again, it's another sector that India is driving. Going beyond just economy, and you look at things like education, because I think if you're going to build a strong and healthy market for art and culture, you need to have a flow of talented and educated people. When I first started recruiting at IIMs, there were about 10 IIMs and IITs in India. Now there are 45, and the underlying need is for about 200. So again, in terms of just that quality of education, India is moving fast, but there's still a lot further to go. And you can see the growing influence of this part of the world in art. If you look at the list of the Power 100, those people who are regarded as being the 100 most influential people in the world, a number of them are sitting in this room. But 14% of that list are from Manasa. And if you'd looked 10 years ago, you might have found one or two. And it shows the rise not only of the size of the economics market, but also the influence of the people in it. And finally, as an example of India's rapid rise to glory, in the 2025 Las Vegas World Spirit Competition, 4 out of the 5 most highly rated spirits were from India, including the best whiskey in the world. So clearly India is on the rise. So moving beyond just the economics and scale of the region, I just wanted to focus a bit more closely on art and give you a sense of what's going on in art. Much of this you already know, so I'll go through that quite quickly. But if you look at the region, if you look at Abu Dhabi, they built the Louvre Museum there. They have over 1 million visitors a year. It's an extraordinary museum, and it's just the beginning of what Abu Dhabi is doing. The Guggenheim is coming on stream. It's going slowly for the right reasons, because building a building is not that difficult. Getting good content takes time and patience, and they're spending the time and patience to build the content and buy the collection. They've also invested $1 billion in Sotheby's, and Frieze is taking over. If you look at Qatar, they've got the Museum of Islamic Arts, another absolutely extraordinary museum who have about 500,000 visitors a year. And last week I was in Doha looking at the Hussein Immersive Exhibition, which KNMA brought over from Venice and took it to Doha. It's a beautiful thing to see. I recommend all of us to go there. Maybe next year when Qatar opens their Hussein Museum, because Hussein was given Qatari citizenship in the last year of his life, and they feel that he is one of their own. And of course, Art Basel is now taking over Doha. If you look at Saudi, they've just started the journey. In the time that I worked in Saudi, from being against anything, against everything, couldn't take photographs, couldn't show photographs, couldn't listen to music. They've now got the Jameel Arts Foundation, they've got the Jeddah Biennale, the building museums. It's very early days still in Saudi, but it is going to be big. Christie's are just going to start their auctions there. And then you go beyond that, you look in Bangladesh, you've got the Samdani Foundation, you've got the Biennale over there. And if you look at India, I'm always struck by the dynamism of what's going on in India. You heard about the KNMA. That's going to completely, I think, change the geography of how art is seen in India. Its collection is, I think, bigger than the NGMA's. A few days ago, I went to the Zirad Museum. I don't know if anybody has been there. It's just down the road from here. Opened about a year and a half ago. Just what a privilege it was to see that. It's incredibly beautiful. It's mainly of antiquities, but it's a fabulous museum. You've got MAP in Bangalore. You've got Serendipity in Goa. You've got the Ambani Center. You've got what the Pyramids are doing. You've got ARC in Madras. And of course, you have this giant Government of India initiative in the North and South Bloc, which they say will be the largest national museum in the world. And it's early days there, but it's extraordinary to see the commitment that's being made. So all of that really is just meant to be an introduction to try to place today's discussion, which was about the shifting of the axis. I could have picked another 100 data points and factoids to show this shift, but I think we all know what is going on. And so what I'd like to do now is just shift gears a bit and ask Kiran and focus on the KNMA. And the KNMA started about 15 years ago when you established it. Could you talk a bit about the evolution of the KNMA from then to now, what you had in mind at the outset, and where things are going?
Good afternoon, everybody. The KNMA journey has been, it's been exciting. We started in 2010, and I didn't really know how it was going to grow, where it was going to go, what I was going to do. I just felt that this is something I'd like to do. I'd like to expose people to the art that I had. I didn't have a great knowledge of art. I hadn't done any programs, courses. It was just a love of the art. I just enjoyed and loved what I saw. And so I started uh, in 2010. We started KNMA. We started in Noida, and thought I would. It was, I mean, uh, at no point at that stage did I think of a mega large museum with this kind of space that today we are now looking at. But it was more like an adventure, um, exposing people to art, where they could learn and they could also get involved. And so, one major event that we planned was starting with school programs. We wanted to get school kids to come and start visiting the museum, and initially we had a there was a bit reticence. The principals were really not interested. They felt it was a complete waste of time getting the school kids to come. But we persisted. We said we will send the buses, we'll give them some food, some snack uh, at the midway point. We'll give them something to eat, and slowly it caught on. And today we have, I think we have about 6 to 7 schools a week who come to the museum and were really interested in what they see. So that has grown, and it has been a great experience. But from there, I have to look at what we are planning, which is a major growth. We are going into building a standalone museum, which is going to be about 1,200,000 square feet, and it is going to house our complete collection. Not the complete collection, but a sizable amount of the collection. And also, we're going to have a source of uh, things which are connected with the museum, but also with culture. So we're going to have a culture and a setup which will show the importance of art and culture in the Indian context. So these are the two things that we are doing. We also had a tie-up with the Qatar royal family. We've done the Souza, the Hussein. Uh, we had done Hussein work last year at yeah at Venice, and we have now shown that in Qatar. And Qatar had a very close linkage with Hussein Saab also. When he left India uh, at one point in his life, which was quite traumatic, he then went to the Middle East and he was involved with both Dubai and with Qatar. And so now we have a tie-up with Qatar as well. I'm sorry. Okay. He was very involved with Qatar, and he had donated a large collection of his works. So Qatar had wanted us to show the works in Doha. So we had gone there. This is just about 3 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago. And so we have built up a great relationship with Qatar. We are also doing a film along with the um, Qatar royal family. It's a film on Amrita Shergill. It is a film that is going to be financed 50% by them and 50% by us. And it's being directed by Meera Nair. So, so the film is about to commence maybe another 2 weeks. we should be on the road, and she hopes to finish it within this year. So, I mean, sorry, middle of next year. And so this is a major event that we have a tie-up with the Qatar family, and I think it's good. It's nice to see. Last year, um, Saudi Arabia did two major shows where Amin Jafar was involved in working on them, and they were extremely. Uh, I think everybody really enjoyed the kind of work that was put up. So having these tie-ups with the Middle East um, for Indian art also, I think, is a great growth story. The museum is going to be roughly 1,200,000 square feet. It is going to be ready within by next year, by 2027. And hopefully, we won't goof up on times because uh, in India, in Delhi, there are these issues of um, having. Currently, we have the weather issues, which do co- compromise our situation. But we are going ahead and hoping to have the museum very latest by 2028, latest, hopefully 2027 end. And it is going to be, for me, it's going to be a big dream that I started the museum with a thought. It has become a reality. I have known Kito for many, many years. When he was just starting his collecting, and we have been uh, associated in many, many roles. And it's nice to be on this fireside chat with Kito. So I'm going to hand it back to Kito to say what he'd like to, then I'll come back and talk to you.
Yeah, as a collector, there are two eras that you always bear in mind. There's PK and there's AK. There's pre-Kiran and there's after Kiran. I didn't know it at the time, but I was lucky. We were lucky to start PK. Could you talk a little bit about the museum in terms of departments? So what I mean by that is, how are you thinking about in your collection? How are you going to display them? Are they going to be different schools? Are they going to be different eras? Is it only going to be Indian? Is it South Asian? Is it international?
We're going to be doing across the board. We start uh, in 2020, let's say 2028 beginning. We're going to have 27 galleries. That's the size. There'll be 27 different galleries. So there we're going to have the contemporary galleries, the moderns, there's a show on Delhi. There are some shows on, let's say we have a show on which Rakib is going to do of his work, because Rakib was one of the earliest collectors that I started buying international art. Then we have William Kentridge. We have a major show, William Kentridge, that we are working on. So there are 27. Then we have two miniature shows, um, which are mainly from our collection. So most people don't know that I have started building a miniature collection. So uh, it's a new love, and so the miniatures, and there are going to be other works, other antiquities also. So it's a vast amount of art from all sides. The emphasis, although, will still remain on my collection of the moderns and contemporaries who are Indian based. That's where the whole emphasis started on. And I would like to leave it, especially in that sphere, and give an emphasis on that part of my collection. And that is the largest, the part of the collection started with the moderns and contemporaries. And that's what's going to be well documented in the show.
And have you already started the process of trying to, in your own mind, populate the different departments? Are you clear in your own mind what you want to see hanging?
Yes, we have. We have now in the process of. We have a very good board. Um, we have Glenn Lowry on our board. We have Homi Baba. We have uh, people from India. We have um, Miss the person at the um, what is the most Sabyasachi Mukherjee, who's at the, I was thinking the name of board. So we have these very well known people who, and of course we have Dipti who's Dipti Mathur and Sunil Hirani and Dipanjana, who's been a great help to me. And of course, my own staff of people who work with me, uh, they have been phenomenal help. We are trying to grow the team because i- it's a very challenging task and it can't be done in a day. So we are trying to grow the team, but it's not easy. But I'm quite confident that we get that. So the shows are all documented now. Um, our curatorial team is going to make a presentation to the board of what exactly, which stage we are in which show, and then they work with their board. They have a group that assists them, and so they can talk to the board and say, we'd like more help on this area. Can you get us some way to go forward? We have a good team of from Paris who are going to assist us uh, in the uh, in in the building of the galleries and the work that it entails. So that is the other aspect. But what is very challenging is our um, group of the. We have two big auditoriums. One big auditorium is about 700 seater, and one smaller one which is about 200 seater. And we have a group, a team which is leading shows of film, music, um, and other aspects which will be there as the show opens. So when we open the museum, it will be the museum comes the cura- the curatorial head plus the people who are going to help us with the cultural aspect. So far the cultural aspect is being we're using Sundar Nursery. We have taken help from them to give us a space. So we've been having shows there, etc. But by the time we open, the museum will be open and we'll be able to have our own shows. And we're in the process of finding very, very important music programs and dance programs which will be there. This is
we've just moved from Dubai to our London home, and we're sort of trying to combine the collections that we had in Dubai with the one in London, and we've only got a few hundred works, and I forget what we've got. I go into the storage and pull something out and say, God, I've forgotten got that one. And then it's taken us about 3 months just to hang about 40 paintings. So my mind boggles at about 15,000 paintings and what you're going to do, and maybe more, or works of art. And one of the things that has always amazed me about you is you have, I know you're a world-class bridge player, so you have a very fine mind and you have a very good ability to remember the cards that are being played. But whenever I ask you about a work, you always know whether you have it or not. So I just wonder, out of all those, how much of the works that you have do you actually think about and remember and have a point of view about whether it should be hung or not?
You know, I do have a reasonably good memory. Um, Maybe my bridge has contributed, and I do know that if I start thinking about how many works I have and where is this work and should it be, can find a roadmap to get there. It's not that I know every single work. Some works I have to really think about. But this much I do know, that the works that I have collected, that has been a labor of love. And I have bought works which when I have felt that I relate to that work. So that memory remains very strong in my mind, that this particular work, I may have bought it 10 years ago or 12 years ago. I can still put a finger on it and say, oh, yeah, this work should be, we should keep it somewhere where it's there. At least it must be there in my mind. I shouldn't lose it mentally. So that is a journey that I have, I think, really enjoyed doing.
Again, this when I think about the experience that Jane and I had with our own collecting, at some point we said, what have we done? Right? We've got far more art than we can ever possibly hang. What does this say about us and our obsessions? And in a way, I figured out that every single work that we bought is a bit like a dot in a painting, and a pattern starts to emerge, and you step back and you see what you did buy and what you didn't buy, and what moved you and didn't move you. And that's at a personal collection. So in a way, it was also a journey of exploring ourselves. So a question to you, with all the dots that you have put on your map of your life, and you look at it, are there any things that you've learned about yourself, or do you see things that you personally resonate more with than others?
Let me say something. I think I have made this journey uh, pretty individually. I don't think I've really, which I in a sense feel maybe I shouldn't. I should maybe have taken more help from people. But my interest in collection and what I have done has been something that I personally have felt is important. So, so the 1500 works that I have built in the collection and what I'm already still building has been a personal journey. Today, I am getting much more involved with people who work with me and taking their help and um, growing myself and realizing that this cannot be a single person assistant unassisted journey. But for somebody who had very little knowledge of art, uh, it was a very it was a journey that I enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed finding work, looking at it, deciding, yes, I would like this. Even if somebody said, "Well, it's okay, that works okay." But it was work that I thought was important. So, so I don't know how to answer your question, but all I feel today is that as we're growing this endeavor, and the museum is just about 2.5 years away, when we build it, there is a phrase that is in a film of Kevin Costner's. If you build it, they will come. I would like to say that once we build this museum, I hope all the people who are interested in art, who see how much art has to do for us, what a fantastic growth pattern it gives us, that they will appreciate and come.
You talked about your motivation for buying, and you bought because you responded to it. I have to say that was something that if Jane, my wife, were here, she always said one of the things she found most frustrating when people came and looked at our collection is they would say, "But you've got gaps,
You would like?
gaps. There are gaps in your collection. You should have had X, Y, or Z." Uh, and she said there are no gaps because the, it is what we wanted to do. It's our journey. We're not collecting for somebody else. We're collecting for ourselves. And I think if you look at a lot of the really great collections of the world, they are personal. They are idiosyncratic, and that is, I think, part of the treasure. That is what I think an individual can do that an institution can't do. And you also raised the point about you don't or you didn't know much about art. When we started collecting, we knew absolutely nothing about India, let alone about art. And we started in the mid 90s, and there was no Google. There were almost no publications. Um, we knew nothing. There was no point in us sort of looking to the lower left-hand side to see what the label said, because we didn't know who Gaitonde was. We didn't know who Sousa was. There was no... All you could do was look a lot, right, and see a lot, and find out what you resonated with. And yeah, that, for me, is the great passion of art. Right? Art is a joy. It's not an intellectual exercise. It has, I think, an intellectual discipline, but it's like bridge, I suspect. Bridge has a lot of intellectual discipline, but it's a joy. It's being with friends and having a wonderful evening.
I think people underestimate the joy of living sometimes. I think the joy you get out of art, or let's say you say bridge, it can be music, it can be theater, it can be so many different aspects. But if you can get joy out of that aspect of your life, I think it's so important. And like my family often says to me, "Why are you going for the Mumbai Art Fair? Why do you go for all these fairs? You have enough of a collection. And I try to explain to them that this is something that gives me pleasure. Seeing the art that I see at a show gives me pleasure. The temptation to get a work and then have it part of my collection at a later stage is pleasurable. So uh, I don't I'm not able to explain why I do it, but it's something that I enjoy doing. And I think the enjoyment out of art is something that we should all look at. Uh, it's a major, I mean, even looking at the Mumbai Art Fair, the amount of effort that is put in by Dinesh and Minal to house this absolutely magnificent art fair has taken a lot of effort. And the effort has given them a lot of pain, but it's given them a lot of joy as well. That they've been able to show what they have put up to all of us here, and everybody has come and seen it. It's an experience of love.
One of the things that I heard and started trying to learn about in the time we were in India was this whole concept of rasa, where you the object matters. The object has to be fine, has to be a fine object. It needs to be displayed or in the right sort of environment, and the viewer is an important component of that in terms they need to be sufficiently sensitive and knowledgeable to be able to understand what's going on. And I thought that was a very powerful concept. Um, and you go to somewhere like the Zirad Museum and you see Rasa at work. You can't, as a viewer, understand what these works are about unless you go through the discipline of trying to understand what the story of the Mahabharata was like, or the Ramayana. What is it they are trying to say and how it's displayed? And it's, I think, that dialogue with what you're seeing that is also a source of the great joy. And what you're building is, or what you will build, I'm sure, will add an enormous millions of ergs of joy to this country. And that is, I think, the biggest source of debt. The amount of rasa that will be generated by the KNMA already is great. Wherever I go in the world, I bump into KNMA. I can be on the banks of the Hudson and under a Brooklyn Bridge, and there's KNMA. You can be in Doha, there's KNMA. You can be in the Barbican in London, and there's the KNMA. And each time there's sort of rasa being generated. They're beautiful works in an incredible location, well curated, and we work out not only wiser but also a lot happier. And I think that is the greatest joy. We're running out of time. I just wanted to finish with one closing question to you, which is advice to anybody who's starting the journey of collecting now. What advice would you give? And I'll preface that with a saying in Japan, which I found very helpful. And what they say in Japan is, when is the best time to plant a tree? The answer is 20 years ago. When is the second best time to plant a tree? Today. So, with that as a sort of introduction to the final question, Kiran, what would be your advice to people who are thinking of going on your journey, even if only a few paces?
No, I think the phrase that you have quoted is extremely thoughtful. I'm going to stress on the second part because what you have lost of 20 years ago is hard to come back. But that now, to do it now and take example from what you see around you is possible. So please keep your eyes open, look around. And okay, I have another point. Art does not have to be only considered as an investment. It must be considered as something that gives you pleasure, joy of where am I going to put it in my home? How am I going to learn to live with this work of art? I think that is more important. Yes, God willing, the 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 money will come. Doesn't matter. If it doesn't, you'll just enjoy the art. So uh, for me, the money was never an important aspect. But if you're coming into collecting with even that thought, it's fine. But look at art, how it can engulf your life and give you joy.
So, speaking as somebody who actually was at the Chester and David Hurwitz first auction, and who was outbid on Tayyab's celebration to Masanori, because I thought it was too expensive. Or I thought $100,000 was a lot of money at the time.
So you should never have lost it.
No. Well, yeah, if I look back on my life, I had lost so many things because it seemed expensive at the time and I didn't have enough money. But the thing is not to regret that. We talked earlier on, and I think we both agreed that this is actually an extraordinarily exciting time to start the journey of collection. Um, we started early, and yeah, we were fortunate in terms of timing, but really it seemed like a fool's errand. There was no market, there was no auction house. The only way to buy or see art was to fly around India and actually go to people's homes, and it was a lot of effort and it was a lot of joy. And now you've got things like today, the infrastructure being built in India around art is all coming up. I think it's one of the most exciting times. We've just exited the era of the startup, and I think we are going to be in an era where of maturing, but still far from maturity. And there are so many aspects of Indian art which have barely been touched. We saw what just happened with miniatures. Well, frankly, anybody with eyes would have seen that miniatures are some of the greatest forms of art, period. And you wonder why on earth has it taken so long? Right? And you can go on. I mean, Baroda art, barely touched. We can go on and on. I think we've got the progressive. That's been one play that's been played, but there are 20, 30 others that are only just starting. So with that, I think, Kiran, we're probably at the end of what we wanted to say. We could go on for much longer. I don't know whether we want to take questions. I'm looking to Minal because of timekeeping. So I think we have been allocated 2 questions.
Free.
So
Yeah. Somebody
you need a microphone. If you can have a
you can
microphone.
give
Yeah.
him a mic. Yeah.
Thank you for that very fascinating panel and really lots of learning for young art collectors like myself who've sort of been schooled in this habit by my parents. My mom sitting right here. Uh, we're sort of capitalists and pseudo capitalists living under one roof where I live, and therefore I want to pick up on this point of joy from art, not just from collection, because collection, let's admit it, is the privilege of a few, but also joy from enjoying art, which of course initiatives like the KNMA make possible and make more accessible. I I wonder whether either of you, perhaps Mrs. Nadar, but either of you really could talk a little bit about your thoughts uh, in terms of how you think healthcare establishments, particularly hospitals, could engage more proactively with art as a healing technique. And I recognize that neither of you probably have the medical expertise, but just from an art collector's perspective, any thoughts will be very welcome.
Just to answer that in a very short, um, I had gone to Breach Candy Hospital 3-4 days ago, and I'd met Dr. Udvadia. I entered his office. The anteroom to his office has got about 50 paintings. The painter of those canvases, paper studies, whatever they are him and his wife. He has painted them and decorated his office. And now he's planning, he's 94 years old. And now he's going he's in the midst of starting a painting which is going to be 5.5 feet by 4 feet 9 inches. Now, if that doesn't give him joy, if it doesn't give him great pleasure as such a senior doctor who has so much work that he's doing, he wouldn't do it. So I just want to say, you see examples, and they're very touching examples. For me, it was just the thought that he was wanting to talk about it to me, how much time he spends. He said, "Did you see that painting there? It's my wife's. It's like a Cezanne." I mean, for him to come, for me, it was an experience. So I'm just saying that these are things, if you get some thought of, it would teach you how art has become an important aspect of our lives.
So two random thoughts. Back in the late 90s, Johns Hopkins did a study on the impact of teaching medical students art history. And the conclusions out of that were, whilst it was a limited set, were quite powerful, that they became much better diagnosticians. And that was because, as I understand it, not as a doctor, in a doctor, you tend to be very narrow and focused on, you've got a lot to do in a day, and you sort of eliminate a lot of noise from life to be able to focus on saving people's lives. Whereas art is just the opposite. Art is about looking and thinking horizontally, and is about observing what's going on in a painting, and it develops your, I'll call it social skills. It's not really, not quite the right word, but that skill set that you need, that you develop by looking carefully and thoughtfully at paintings, is also a skill set that is very helpful to building greater peripheral vision in doctors. So that was fact point. Number two is, I think there's been quite a bit of research done on color theory, particularly in children's wards. And you see now, just like there's color theory going into museums, in children wards, there are certain colors which helps them heal and respond and feel safer, much better than the traditional white.
Thank you.
Myself, Mamra Soni from Tijara, Alwar, Rajasthan. I do the miniature on the gold plate. I met Madam with Mr. Himasha first time, and Mr. Amannath with second time. I saw my work, Madam, and then the art has given the never-ending pleasure. अनंत आनंद का जरिया है this art. The joy or the beautiful evening you said. Art actually the universe of the this hayat and all. So I want to, my question is, by the way, the miniature art was started from where?
I'm not quite sure what the question is that we need to answer.
Anyone can translate my language?
Miniature art goes back to about at least 500-600 years ago, or more than 16th century, 15th century. And if we look at antiquities, they go back much earlier than that. So, what the question means, I don't know. These are areas which we have lived with for many, many years. They're not today bound. We appreciate them today, and we know that there's a large lineage, like our modern artists um, take inspiration from the miniatures in a lot of cases.
Thanks a lot.
And one final question.
Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to express my happiness on the Tayamata exhibition. It has taken a lot of effort, but seeing all of the works together is a great thing. Coming to the question, which I'm sure I'll resonate with most of one present here, is I want to know the first artist that you bought. And same with you, sir. I'll try my best to match the same artist as my first artwork as well.
My first artist that I bought for my house, I bought three artists together. One was there were two Hussains. There was one Rameshwar Bruta, and there was a Manjeet Bawa. These were my first four artists and also one Kishan Khanna. These were the first five artists that I bought together.
Will be difficult to match, but I'm sure I appreciate it. Same with you, sir.
Two times in my life I have fallen in love. One was on the windsurfing center in Singapore, where I looked across and I looked at my now wife, Jane, and something magical happened. The second time was in New Delhi at a art gallery opening, where I was just, the usual sort of thing, whiskies in hand, people talking to each other, not really looking at the works of art on the wall. And I was talking to somebody, and over the shoulder was the second woman I've fallen in love with. She just spoke to me through the cigarette smoke and the talk, and it was Ganesh Pine's Woman Before the Pillar. And if anybody knows Ganesh Pine's work, he is a mystical artist. As a English management consultant who studied statistics and computer science, I'm probably on the completely opposite end of the spectrum to Ganesh Pine. But I had never heard of him, never seen him, but through all of that haze, he had something very powerful to say and to connect with me, and we've been buying Pine forever. The second artist we bought, and I have to mention it, is Rameshwar Bruta. In a different way, has got this extraordinary energy. We bought a triptych from him. We went to his studio, and I said, "This is going to be the most expensive work of art I'll ever buy." And he said, "Okay, why is that? I can give you more of a discount if you want." I said, No, you don't understand. I'm going to have to get the house to fit the painting. And as anybody who's been to the houses will know, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't a joke. It's such a fantastic work in our view that we had to hang it, and we had to find the house or the houses where we could hang those works.
That's a perfect humor you started the answer with. Thank you.
So thank you very much.